Drink it in, man.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions! Cornbread!
Stafford! Drink it in, man.
Detroit Kool-Aid. This is Oakrey. We are here. It is Thursday. Once again, I'm here. I got my man, the myth, the legend, the Big Hughes on the other end of the line. We're here with another Kool-Aid cast, and I want to kick it off right off the top. We're going to just get right into football. We had the first OTAs today. The media was there. The juices are flowing. The Kool-Aid is nice and fresh and cold, and we want to talk about one of our receivers today. We've got Golden Tate. This guy, he hasn't been up in front of the media, but everybody knows he's kind of going into that last year contract. He's making some good money now. I remember when we signed him, I was kind of like, I don't know about that contract for Golden Tate. But the guy has been nothing but productive since he's been here. He seems to love it here. Seems to be kind of a quiet, different style of leader. So Hughes, he's heading to the last year of his deal. Thinking making around $7-8 million right now. Wants to stay here, wants to retire a Lion. I know it's not like right on top of us, but it is something to talk about, and he's an important piece of this team. So what are you thinking? I mean, do you extend him now? Do you kind of let this play out? Are you willing to pay this guy? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think as a fan, as a huge fan of the Lions, like, I love Golden Tate. I mean, when we first signed him from Seattle, I'm like, okay, who's this bum? He hasn't done anything since coming out of Notre Dame. Like, if we get something from him, great. If we don't, whatever. But, since he's been a big part of our offense, I feel like he's been a huge part of our offense. So it's great. I want to re-sign him as a fan. If I'm looking at this as on a management side of the team, I guess it depends on what he feels that he deserves. I mean, the one thing about Golden Tate is he likes himself some Golden Tate. I mean, not as bad as, T.O. or those guys back in the day, but, he knows he's good. He knows he can get a lot of money somewhere else if it's not here. So I think at the end of the day, it's all going to come back to, like, where he values himself and where the Lions value him contract-wise. But as a player, absolutely, he's the type of guy that you want on your roster all day.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, he is kind of that quiet, confident, quirky kind of player when it comes to certain things. But, man, his production has been off the charts since he's been here. Just 90 to 100 catches every year, 1,000 yards, some of those huge touchdowns. One thing I love about Tate and players like him is, like, you can remember those key touchdowns where we needed a big play. This guy came up large and won us some football games. So you got to love that about the guy too. I mean, not only his production when it comes to numbers, but some of these big plays that you can look back on where he's somersaulting in the end zone. He's house calling one from 80 yards when we're down 14 to get us back in a football game.
Yeah.
So I think that's huge. I'm pulling just some of his info right now. He is 29 years old. What do you feel about where the age break is for a receiver? Do you see him falling off? Talk me through that a little bit, because that's always part of the NFL is both age, your contract number, and where this team is headed.
Yeah, I mean, obviously 29 in the NFL is kind of getting up there a little bit. But, I mean, the way that he – I don't know, takes care of himself and does his off-season stuff. Like, to me, age doesn't seem to be an issue with him. He's a unique type of player with the amount of wiggle that he has when he runs. He doesn't necessarily take a lot of big hits. So he might be aged, in numbers, but I don't know if that necessarily takes a toll on how for the most part, he's been healthy for as long as he's been with the, Lions, knock on wood. But to me, that doesn't – a 3 or 4 year deal, I would be comfortable giving him. But I wouldn't pay him, like, top 10 wide receiver money.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I like how you kind of brought up his style, too.
Yeah.
Like, one thing that's shocked me about Golden Tate, like, I didn't know much about him either when he came here, as big a football fans as we are. We knew where he played in college. We knew he sort of was – okay, I guess, out in Seattle, but never really burst onto the scene. But since he's been here, he kind of has this weird game where he plays on the outside a lot, but he has an underneath kind of game where he just catches 8-yard ball, turns it into 20, moves the sticks. Nobody can tackle him, where he doesn't blow me away like Theo does. You know how Theo catches a ball and you're like, oh man, he's just breaking ankles, or he's pulling the dead leg. Like, I don't see many ridiculous plays out of Tate, but every time he catches the football, at least 3-4 guys are on the ground or can't get him to the ground. So I think you're right about that. His style lends him to being both more durable and maybe that age not meaning as much, because he's not running that out route and just blowing by a corner. He's coming on long crosses. He's kind of catching bubble screens, stuff like that. So I think that does lend something to him. I'm looking at it right now. Like, can you believe this? 5 years ago, he signed a 5-year, $31 million deal, averaging 6.2 a year. And so with this final year at 29, he's going to make $7 million base. My only thing is I really don't want to go much more than that. Like, if we're giving him another couple years, 3 at the most is maybe what I'd do. It's going to have to still be like 8.5, a little bump up, but I can't go much more than that. Not only because it's the receiver position, but we got some young stallions out there, namely Kenny Galladay, that I'd like to get some more PT. So if he really wants a big price tag, I'm not willing to go there. But hey, if we can give you a nice raise for what you've done and also get you in your early 30s before you got to head out the door and retire a Lion, I'm willing to do that. But if you want more, like, you can go play somewhere else. And, love you, respect you, GT, but that's just the business of the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with you that would be ideal as far as where we want a contract to be. But if I'm Golden's agent, I at least want to be the highest paid receiver on the team. And I'm pretty sure Marvin is a lot higher salary cap wise than GT right now. So I have to assume that that's at least what they're going to be looking at, is to get him as the highest paid receiver. Because I'm super excited to get a full season of all 3 of those guys in the lineup together, because they all offer something different, right? Like we talked about, Tate's like our inside, like, wiggle guy. And Marvin, last year he started taking the top off defenses, catching long touchdown passes. And Kenny's got that big frame where he's like your possession, that square in across the middle, or even your out routes, whatever. Like, getting those 3 on the field at the same time is going to be magic.
Yeah, no, they all got the great skill sets, and it's funny you mentioned the money. I'm pulling it up, and Marvin, like, here's the crazy thing about the NFL. Whenever these contracts get doled out, everybody freaks out about them. But when you look at him, like, a couple years later, especially if you do it right, like, I think Bob Quinn, that's a whole other topic, but how he's kind of, brought in these players at good ages, good upside, and good money. Like, for the most part, like, we have Marvin Jones for 2018, 2019, and 2020, all at basically $6.5 million per year.
Oh, wow. See? Because the perception of that contract when he first signed it is he's got to be way higher than anybody else, any of the other receivers.
Right. Well, it was 5 years, 40. So he's got 3 years left, and GT's on the final year. But they basically signed the same deal a couple years. I think we had GT 2-3 years before Marvin came in the game. Yeah. So it was just a few years later. But man, you still got him at a crazy number. Like, we're gonna love that number in 2020. Still going, hey, $6 million for Marvin Jones. Like, Marvin Jones will be what age is he here? 28 years old. So he'll be 30 when that deal is. He's sitting there still at 6. Like, I mean, we may have to uptick him too. But to me, these dollars are lining right up where you want them, especially at that position. Let you pay other spots, and these guys are young and athletic, like you just said. Marvin kind of came into his own last year, and then you got GT, who, like I said, isn't losing a step, does a lot of different things than the other guys, and I don't even think we've seen the surface of Kenny Galladay. I guess my question when you said that was, I was going, who we got behind those 3? Because it's nice to have 3 receivers like that are kind of middle of the road and athletic and have high upside, but after that, there's a pretty big fall off of depth and quality of player. So that's another reason maybe to keep Tate around. Just keep that trio going, because to me it's a nice trio. No egos, no nothing, and just ball players that all do different things, like you said. So I'm gonna vote to keep him in town, give him a extension, kind of a pat on the back, a reward for what he's done. Keep being a leader, keep loving the city of Detroit, and just do it, like you say, kind of be shrewd, though. Do it at the right value, and just respect the guy. Yeah. And I think hopefully that's what they'll do.
I think at the end of the day, like, I think that the max I would go on on re-signing a player like him is probably 8.5 a year. I think that would be fair market value for, probably a guy his caliber. So anything higher than that, I'm probably passing on. But I think that's where I would stick my foot in the ground.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I like that number, and we'll just have to see. Like I'm thinking they don't really get anything done here in the near future, but I think that towards training camp it could become a thing, and they can either get it done then, or they could let him play out the year and still give him a deal maybe halfway through the year, something like that. But it'd be a nice way to head into camp to give this guy a deal who's been a good player for us, a good citizen, and a kind of a quiet, not so quiet at times, I guess, leader, but a guy that's just good for the team.
Well, he's like Nate Burleson, but he can actually play. So,
don't dog Nate.
Lion blood.
Lion blood forever. We loved him, but I got you. He's definitely a tick up in regards to production.
Yeah.
Quite a bit of tick up, and he's been more healthy than Nate ever was here. But like you said, when they brought in Nate, I guess their best case scenario was to get a guy like Golden State with his production and his leadership, and at the cost they're getting him, which is really nice. So we'll both see, and it's going to be important, so I'm glad we got a chance to chop it up about it. And GT, we hope you're here. We love what you're doing. Keep it up, bro.
Drink it in, man. Touchdown, Detroit Lions! Cornbread! Drink it in, man.
So Big Hughes, we're back here on the Kool-Aid Cast, and one thing, we've talked about him before, we always talk about him, he's number 9, he's the quarterback of the Detroit Lions, Matt Stafford. But one thing I want to talk about today that I don't think gets brought up much is, like, Matt Stafford is going to his 9th, 10th year for the Detroit Lions. What is this guy's absolute ceiling? Like, everyone says, is he elite? Is he not elite? Like, where does he sit in the NFL pecking order? I just want to know if everything comes together, he stays healthy, he's got a run game, he's got an O-line, he's got some of these outside weapons now. How good can this guy be? Can he be top 3? Can he lead us way deep in the playoffs after never winning a playoff game? Like, what are you thinking as far as he's got all the tools, but what's the best case scenario for him, and what do you think he's going to do this year realistically?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a question that's on the mind of many Lions fans, and I'll be the first to say that I am a huge Stafford fan. But until the likes of people like Tom Brady, Drew Brees, those guys retire, I mean, he's not going to be a top 3 quarterback. But the Lions don't need him to be that type of quarterback for what they need. I mean, obviously his legacy is all going to come back to whether or not he's the guy that finally pushes him through to win the Super Bowl. And if he's that guy, then he'll forever be a legend in the state of Michigan, the city of Detroit, anywhere anybody cares about the Honolulu Blue, Matthew Stafford will be a living legend. I do think resume-wise, like, he obviously has put up crazy number of stats. One, because he's been in the league for 9-10 years. Two, he's only going to be about 30 years old. He's already climbing up the overall charts with career touchdown passes, career yards, different things like that. So at this point of his career, I mean, the next step, the ceiling for him would be to finally get through that ceiling of winning a playoff game, getting to the Super Bowl, winning the Super Bowl. His legacy with this team relies on that and that only, in my eyes.
But let me turn the heat up on you a little bit, because to me that sounds like the same answer we always give, and it sounds like the same way that I introed it is what we always say, like, is he there? What's he going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't you think it's time? Like, I feel like he had all those crazy numbers in the beginning because we were terrible and we just slung it around the field all day. The last few years, he's getting better accolades for, like, leader, and he's in better shape, and he's this and he's that. Like, I really want to see a dominant NFL season out of this guy. I'm talking turn the clock back to 2011 when he dropped 40-plus touchdowns, right, when he had 5,000 yards, when he was straight up winning ball games for us. Like, when's the last time he dropped 5-6 touchdowns and won a football game for us outright? We were just like, man, Matt Stafford won that game. Like, he has more pieces, so I know what you're saying. He doesn't have to do that, but yeah, I'm getting frustrated by the guy that we're like, well, okay, he's going to make another step forward, leap, like 9-10 years, man. Like, now is the time, and you got everything you need. Yeah, you have a new coaching staff and whatnot, but I'm talking about, like, my perfect scenario for this guy is he comes in this year and takes a big leap from where he was last year in regards to production. Like, I loved all the checks of the lines. I loved how he was kind of leading the team in that way. But I just want to see straight up numbers. I want to see those low turnover numbers.
Yep.
I want to see high touchdown, high yardage numbers. And I want to see game-winning plays against the best teams. Not like beating up on the Clevelands of the world and the Jets of the world. I want to see you come out in a big-time game against a big-time team and straight up put them in the ground. And I think that time is now. So, I mean, if I push you a little bit on that, wouldn't you say the same thing?
No, 100%.
You know, stop tiptoeing around it. Let's get this guy at the top of the game. And yeah, he may not be Tom Brady per se, but he needs to start being in that top 8, top 5.
Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. I mean, you know, we've talked about this before when they brought Matt Pat in and Bob Quinn and Stafford. They're all on a 5-year deal, man. Like the window is right now in this 5-year span. So the step forward this season has to be a big enough one to put them in range to make that next leap forward and get into the big game, the Super Bowl. But I mean, the one thing about Stafford, the one knock that he has, the one thing that to me always stands out when we need something big to happen on the field is sometimes he gets a little loosey-goosey with his accuracy. So I think, like, to me, to make him come into that elite status, I want to be watching a game one time and just see Stafford dime every single pass. Not overthrow the tight end on a 5-yard out, not underthrow one, not try to do something silly, just a dime every single time. Because you watch games, when you watch guys like Aaron Rodgers, when you watch guys like Tom Brady, Ben Roethlisberger, those guys, they're not missing passes that often. I mean, they always talk about the strength of Stafford's arm, but his downfall has always been his accuracy. So for me, for him to be in that category, top 5, top quarterback, that's where he needs to step his game up, and he needs to be on point all game long.
Oh man, no doubt. And just to put a button on this segment, like, the one thing you said about being accurate is perfect and right on point. Like, just, you know, in the big time moments, like, just not missing those passes. But my thing, and I want to put this out there, this is a Matt Stafford house and podcast. Like, the Detroit Kool-Aid cast is all about number 9 and leading this team. There's not many other guys we like as our signal caller, but what I want him to do is come out and put the hammer down on people, because I can't even remember the last game that we just came out and blew someone out basically from the get-go. Like, the closest thing was that meaningless game against the Packers where we really put it to them, but they didn't have any of their players and it didn't matter. We turned the clock all the way back to me and Grifka at a game against Kansas City probably 5-6 years ago, where it was like his 3rd year or something, and he just put it on him, like 5 touchdowns, 400 yards, like blew him out 40-7. Like, can we get one of those games every once in a while? Because I feel like every game we're sleepwalking through the half, and then we're going, man, why are we so terrible? And then we turn the heat up and we start putting some plays together, and we gotta bite it out. We gotta fight it out all the way to the end. Like, that's another step I'm just looking for him is, hey man, if we're better than the other team, come in with a sense of cockiness, confidence. Come in, be crisp from the get-go. You don't need a quarter or 2 quarters to get rolling. Like, get in there, get rolling from the first quarter on, and even if you're up 14, go bury somebody, put another one on them. You know what I mean? I feel like we, maybe with this new coaching staff, will have that attitude, but I felt like the coaching staff and Stafford the last couple of years have been more like, I'll get into the game, I got to figure out the other team, blah, blah, blah. It's like, sometimes that's right, and other times you got to come out better than you've come out and get it done. So that's my other challenge. Matt Stafford, just be a little bit more crisp throughout the game, bring it all quarters, and put your foot down on people as the leader of this team, and take that next step.
There's no doubt, because here's the thing is I can't blame him for the slow starts last year, because I can only imagine the fire that Jim Caldwell spits out in his pregame speeches. I mean, Stafford probably wasn't awake until the 3rd quarter of most games.
Right.
He's sitting there looking at all his teammates, wondering what the heck is this old man talking about. He's firing up the church choir. You get Matt Pat in there with his pencil in his ear, he'll be ready to go. I'm ready to go right now. Give me a football, I'll throw the thing quarter mile.
Oh yeah, man, that's a good point, man. They got to lead, but there's got to be that internal fire. I mean, he's got this quiet fire about him. You know, we've seen him bark at players and whatnot, but come on, man. Just nobody should have to get this guy fired up. Like, just come out there. It's pretty easy to get fired up when you're dropping touchdowns and points on people. And he just needs to do a little bit more of that to be at that elite level. So I'm putting the bar at, like, you know, like top 6 to 8 quarterback on the low end, and I'd love to see him in that top 5 this year in regards to stats, but in regards to just winning ball games and being at that upper echelon.
100%. And on the top of that, just give me a playoff win. Win a playoff game this season. Make it happen.
Yes. A playoff win. If you can give me multiple, we really like that too, because everything doesn't need to be a baby step. We don't need to win 1 playoff game this year and get bounced and then come and try to win 2 next year.
No, win the whole damn thing. Do it.
Lots of teams take a big leap, so why don't we just go try to win the whole dang thing? And but at a bare minimum, like you say, this year, not only get in the playoffs, get in there and have some comfort towards the end of the year. Put a W inside of Ford Field in the postseason, and then take us deeper than that, would you please? So,
absolutely.
It's time, and I think we're setting that here at the Kool-Aid Cast. This is ceiling, and there's no better time than now.
How about that quarterback? He's something else. Drink it in, man.
So, Big Hughes, you still with me on the other end of the line, bro?
Oh, yeah.
All right. I got to take this topic right now, and this is one. We've been Lions fans for years. Am I right?
Yeah.
We've been talking on football for years. Am I right?
Oh, yeah.
We've seen quite a few coaching staffs come in and out the door. Am I right?
You're right.
All right. So what I want to talk about right now are all these New England Patriots that are flowing through the doors here at Allen Park. Every day, every time I wake up, we got a new Patriot coming through. We're signing Patriots. We're trading with the Patriots. Like, I don't know. Like, you know, it sounds good. Oh, they know the system. They've won this, that, and the other. My mind sort of just goes back to, remember when Rod Marinelli came in here?
Who?
You know, Captain Rod with his shovel and his pick and his axe and whatever else he had that he was going to dig deep with. Remember that guy? Kind of had like a leg sleeve on and waddled around the sidelines.
0-16 Rod, that guy?
Yes, that's the guy.
Yeah.
Do you remember what kind of players we kept bringing in when he came here?
Oh, yeah, the creamsicles.
Ah, yes, Tampa Bay Bucks coming in and out the door. Remember when Jim Shorts came in here? Remember him?
Oh, yeah. Sure do.
The guy that would fight you at the 50 if you pushed him too hard?
Yes, he does not like Jim Harbaugh, that's for sure.
No, not a fan of handshakes. No. Who did he keep bringing in when he came through the doors? Who?
Some Tennessee Titans.
Lots of Titans coming through the door, right? Remember even a whole offseason where he wanted Albert Hainsworth? Yes. Remember that name?
Yeah.
$100 million?
Oh, yeah.
How did he work out? Good thing he didn't come here.
Yeah.
So we're bringing in all these people, and here we go again, where these guys just bringing in guys they know, but everyone gives them the benefit of the doubt. Oh, it's the Patriots. Oh, they've won. Oh, they're young. They're this. Like, I'm leaning more towards this probably is different because of Bob Quinn, much more football savvy than Martin Mayhew, that other guy that has 2 M's that we shall not speak of. Like, what do you think about this? Like, there's coming through, just throw some names at you. We just signed Trevor Bates, inside linebacker with the Patriots. We got this Chris Lacey, who was in the draft and claimed off waivers, I guess sort of with the Patriots. We already know about the other players they brought in, both for visits or just on the team. Like, you think this is a good thing, bad thing?
I mean, honestly, I feel like very indifferent about it, especially with these Patriots guys, because one is the guy was just drafted, so he has no insight about the Patriots about anything, and the second guy I've never heard of. So either I'm out of the loop or he's just nobody important. I just think it happens with new front offices and coaching staffs coming from different teams. You know, they're just, you know, when I think about this, I think about fantasy football, and I think about the person that I trade with the most, and that's you, because I'm most familiar with you out of everybody in our league, and that just works out the way it is. There's no plus or minus behind it, but we just seem to work out the most trades, and I think this kind of falls in line with that. I mean, I get it, like the Matt Castle part of it, because he was a Patriot, right? So I think he might fall along the lines of maybe my initial thought is, oh, he'll help the offense. But I'm like, wait a minute, we're not taking the Patriots offense. JBC's back. So I really don't think there's anything that goes into it. I think it's just a matter of like, okay, we know this guy. We're familiar with this guy. We don't have to dig too deep into his background. We don't have to, check with his Pop Warner football coach to see what he's really like. Like, we don't have to go too far in depth because we've already done this work at some point. So let's save ourselves a little bit of time and just sign some guys that we're familiar with.
Yeah, I agree with you on the trade aspect. Like, that's kind of what the NFL comes down to, are these like relationships you build over years, and some people are easy to deal with, some people aren't. I guess like when it comes down to these low level or these free agent guys, like a parade of Patriots, unless they're good Patriots that are young and that are athletic. That's the thing I'll give them. It seems like every time they bring someone in, other than some of the D linemen, they kind of kick the tires on.
Yeah.
Like, they're pretty young and they might know something we don't. So I'm not totally knocking it. I just feel like we've seen it before,
100%.
and I don't want it to be this bad trend where we look back in a year or two and go, oh man, we got all these old or these no good Patriots, and the Patriots are over there winning Super Bowls still. So it's just ironic. Obviously, everybody bringing it up, talking about it. Oh, another Patriot. So I thought it was something to note here on the Kool-Aid Cast. But with that, with the Patriots coming in and out and all this other stuff, what I want to transition into is this talk about position flexibility. Like, it seems to be Bob Quinn's like number one thing that he looks for is, almost doesn't matter how good you are. It matters how much you can do and how many spots you can play. Like, what do you think about this? I mean, they're moving people all over. Yeah. They got people flip-flopping. Like, I think over our time looking at football and fantasy football, we started to realize, you really got to be versatile because of all the injuries. But talk to me about position flex, some of the guys you've heard about where they're moving them around, what you think will work, not work. What do you think?
Yeah, so, when I hear position flex, it kind of reminds me of something. So I just want to be the first one to congratulate and say happy Ragnow Day. Before we get started on this segment.
Yes, thank you.
So as a first-round pick, one of the things they talk about with Ragnow is his, flexibility and in the positions that he can play, right? So the articles are already streaming in today about, he worked at guard here, he worked at center here, blah, blah, blah. I think, really what it boils down to for most GMs and why they like to have that flexibility is not only does it help with, when you're injured or depth, but it helps when you're calculating or figuring out your final roster, right? So you don't have to you don't have to have more bodies on the offensive line than you would, so you can take an extra corner or an extra wide receiver instead who can do more things, or an extra defensive lineman rather than an extra offensive lineman. So typically, obviously, you start 5 offensive linemen. Most of the time, you'll have 2 or 3 guys on the bench in case of injuries, a couple other guys on your practice squad. So you don't want to have to carry more than 7 or 8 guys on your 53. So if you have a guy like Ragnow who can play both guard and center, then that's beneficial. So say Glasgow gets hurt, you don't have to, find another guy to replace him. You slide him over, and you have, you just got to plug someone in wherever Happy Ragnow Day was playing. And especially in the same thing with the secondary. It's been huge last year with Quandre Diggs starting the season playing slot corner, and he was just tearing it up. According to our friends at Pro Football Focus, he was one of the highest rated, slot corners in the league last year. And, injuries came up, and they were able to shift him back to safety, and he picked up right where he left off. So, I mean, it's nice to have guys who can play multiple positions, so you're not always taking guys off the field and just throwing in guys who can't play other areas, if that makes sense.
Oh, definitely. I think it's a huge piece that we may have done in the past, but now it's doing it at such a high level. I'm just kind of looking at the depth chart right now as we're chatting, and just throwing some names at you. Like, when I'm thinking position flex and just different spots, like thinking with the O-line, I'm looking at Ragnow's got position flex, Glasgow, Joe Dahl can play tackle and guard, Terrell Crosby, the rookie, can play inside and outside. That there's about 4 guys I named just on the O-line that can flex out. You go to the D-line, you're looking at guys. In my opinion, Zettel can play in and out. We just got Deshaun Hand, who's an inside-outside. This Jeremiah Ledbetter, I really don't know anything. Like, they seemed high on this guy. I can't remember anything he did last year, but I remember them saying he's an inside-outside player. Cornelius Washington can do a little bit of that. And then when you move to like our corners and whatnot, I feel like our corners, not only do we have a good corner group, but as far as Diggs being able to flip inside corner and back out to safety, some of our linebackers being interchangeable and whatnot, like, I feel like our receivers are pretty set, There's a little bit of flex there, but not a ton. So, I mean, when you can have flex in your D-line, your O-line, and your back end, like, to me, that's just going to bode so well, like you said, for injuries, moving them around. Like, and the other thing I love about Quinn and when he says position flex is, like, I remember when they showed the call with Happy Ragnow Day, he was like, hey, we don't know where we're going to play you. It might be guard, it might be center. We'll figure it out. Like, to me, everybody's worrying about where these guys are going, and I'm excited they're putting them in odd spots because you know how it is. Like, when you're a good center and somebody puts you at left guard, you're, like, out of your element. So it makes you focus more, and it makes you learn it because, hey, we might just move you back to center, but we at least want to get you familiar now when it doesn't matter. So put them all over the field, all of these other places. They even had Nick Ballore. He's playing offense now, full time, they said today, moving guys around like that from one side of the ball to the other. So I think it can't do anything but help, and I think that we take it for granted of just being like, okay, position flex. Like, it really is important, and I bet if you went down and broke down the Patriots from back in the day, they had tons of those guys who not only could move all over, but were filling in left and right, and that's why you never saw a big drop.
Right, because at the end of the day, you want to be able to play a defense your best 11, no matter what the position is. So having the flexibility in your players to line them up where you line them up gives you that ability to play your best 11, not play your best 2 inside defensive linemen, and then, okay, well, this guy's my third defensive end, but he's not as good as my third defensive tackle who I could play on the defensive end. So it just gives you the ability to play your best 11 at all times. And the same thing with the offensive line. You're going to play your best 5. You might know, like, where 3 of those 5 positions are going to be, but you know that your best 5 is going to be on there. And that best 5 is going to include Ragnow and Glasgow. But who cares where they end up playing? That's your best 5, right? So that's how they're going to line up.
And with your best 5, we finally got to get to the point, not only at the O-line, where you got, like, 2 backups that aren't backups, like, hey, I'm a backup right tackle, and that's it.
Right.
Like, you got to be a backup lineman, meaning backup guard, backup center, backup right guard, backup tackle, in a perfect world. And same, like, the spot I still feel, and we'll get to it another day, is the defensive ends. Like, I feel like a big injury there, and we're going to be out of luck, even though we can move people around a little bit. Like, we need to get more flex out there. Maybe that'll come with the scheme. But, like you say, on your D-line, just give me your best, what do they keep? Usually 6 D linemen on a day, Give me your best 6 and move them. I mean, I heard all types of things today. They're only playing 3-man fronts. They got Kennard rushing off the edge every play. Like, to me, they'll be able to figure out how to get to the quarterback, but we need a little bit more flex on that side of the ball. Just saying, give me 6 good football players on defense, 5 good linemen, and make it work on a Sunday.
Yeah, and you know what?
That's what position flex
means.
And
that's the stuff. I mean, just hearing that, like, they only line up 3 Kennard's rushing. You know what that is to me? That's a coach putting his roster in the best position to succeed, not trying to squeeze a roster into what you think is the best, right? So say, for example, back in the day when Captain Rod took over, and he's all about his Tampa 2, but he wouldn't flex away from the Tampa 2, even if we didn't have the guys necessary. We were going to play the Tampa 2. And then Jim Schwartz, he wanted the wide 9. It didn't matter if we had the right guys to do it. He wanted the wide 9. And you know what, Patricia, so far, he's coming in, he's saying, okay, these are what I have. This is what would be the best to help our defense to succeed. That's why I'm not saying this is what my scheme's going to be, because that's what good coaches do, is they adjust their scheme, their package to the players that they're dealt.
Perfect, man. I think that's a perfect way to kind of close up the Kool-Aid cast today. We've got guys that have position flex that can move all around the field, and they're good, solid football players. That's what we want. It doesn't matter if they're Patriots or non-Patriots. If they're coming in, they can play football, and you can also move them around. All the better for this team winning games. So, Hughes, I totally appreciate it, man. Thanks for coming in on the Detroit Kool-Aid cast again. Everybody out there, make sure you hit that subscribe button. send us some messages, interact with us. We're going to keep this thing going, and man, it's just the end of May. We got some exciting OTAs we'll be talking about, kind of just finishing up today, so we'll hit that up on our next cast, and then we'll be, before you know it, man, training camp will be heading, and we'll be talking real football before you know it, so can't wait for that. So Big Hughes, really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Happy Ragdown Day.
Yes, sir.
Pack the bag, start the plane. This game is over. It is over. What a comeback by the Lions. Drink it in, man.